Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And I did a tally again last night to double check my numbers, and we are on episode 256. So we're about 109 away from 365, and I appreciate all you guests and all of you people that have watched. I think we're jamming and we're getting into the home stretch, and it's feeling super good. So today I'm sitting in the sanctuary, back from our celebration of abundance. Probably quit talking about that by tomorrow. I've got a No Rules t-shirt on that Dustin Grimes designed for us as part of the values not rule concept that we have here at the Fledge. So promoting no rules. Maybe that's anarchy to some people, but to us, it's about living in values and not rules that are biased and discriminate and all of those things. So today on the show, I was telling Gerrard, he's our guest, that he is the most pure person that or not most pure, but the most pure interview I've done, in that I do not know Gerrard at all, and I cannot wait to hear his story. We have a mutual friend, and I'm super excited to learn about this guy. How you doing, Gerrard?
Hi, Jerry. How's it going?
It's going well. You know, we were. I am excited to learn about you, because it's going to be, to me, the most kind of surprising show, because I know you're going to surprise me. So, you know, I talked about my t-shirt, and I see Nelson. I used to be a wrestler, so I'm thinking half Nelson. Who's Nelson? You know, it didn't take me long, but I got to who it was.
Yeah.
But you got
Nelson Mandela.
The man.
Nelson Mandela, absolutely. I thought it was fitting, obviously, for today with the Pistons on. He's got his Piston jacket on. So he was repping Detroit when first time he got out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's old school Piston hat and jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, when I went to U of M in the 80s, and, you know, apartheid was happening at that point, and we were boycotting Coca-Cola and marching and trying to do our best. And I was so happy when he got out and became the president. He was definitely a hero to me.
Absolutely.
So, and you're in Farmington, is that right? Farmington Hills?
Correct. Yeah, that's where I reside now. My family and I were in Farmington. Probably like the last 3 years we've been out that way. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about you before we get too far into that.
Sure.
Where were you born and raised, and where'd you go to school, and what brought you to whatever you're doing now?
Yeah. So I'm Detroit born, like many folks around this way. I actually grew up in Southfield, though. So I grew up in Southfield, went through Southfield Public Schools, and that ended up landing me at Eastern Michigan University, right? So that's where I did my undergrad work. I never tell people this. I don't even bring it up unless it's necessary. I went to U of M for my master's program, but I never talk about it. My sister thought it was funny to give me a license plate thing from U of M, but you know I wasn't going to say it or tell anybody about it. But I did go to U of M, and then I'm back at Eastern now. Back at Eastern, finishing on my PhD. Potentially like another year and a half, I should be done. I'm in the last phase of comp exams, prospectus, and then the final dissertation part. So
I think in your undergrad, was it African American Studies or something?
Yeah, so that was one of my majors, but also majored in English. I was just really in a rush to get out of college, and so I picked up communications, African American studies, and also English. I'm not exact. I just picked them all up and so I noticed there's enough credits, and then I just left.
Yeah.
But I didn't go into education. So a lot of people are always thinking I went straight into education. I didn't. I was in such a rush based upon what was told. The perception was that, right, you go to college, and when you're done with college, you get a good job, right?
Yeah.
That was the myth that went along with that process. For 8 years, I never used my degree. 8 years. I went directly into Quicken Loans, worked for Quicken Loans for like a year, worked at Verizon for like 7 months, and then bounced around doing some other sales in between before I got back in education.
Yeah.
So very interesting thing. I mean, I went to college definitely for the network. I walked around with a degree, but never used it. Didn't use it for 8 years.
Yeah. In Eastern, well, first of all, why don't you talk about U of M? Like, what did you study there? And are you a Spartan fan or?
No, man. We were down the street. U of M is down the street from Eastern.
Yeah.
And every year, when they play those under division games, or that was always us.
Yeah.
And so we would be the first game U of M would play. They would beat us by 40. We go over there to the parties afterwards, get in a fight. So it was just always something. So I never really picked up a big love for U of M. I did enjoy the Fab Five, but other than that, I was like, I don't really tell people too much that I went to U of M.
Yeah, I was lucky. I was a wrestler around the time of the Fab Five, so I know those guys.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun during those days. I didn't talk about it, but I went to Eastern for an MBA, but I dropped out. I didn't like it.
Okay.
Not because of Eastern, but because the MBA was too Harvard-y business school stuff, and I was real more about people.
Okay. Okay.
So what is your PhD in right now?
Yep. So it's also educational studies. So potentially it's setting me up to be a director of like student programs. In particularly, I focus for Black students. So for myself, and I kind of tell like a quick version of it, right? I went to college and I went to U of M, and then I'm doing my PhD, and it's never that. My first semester in college, I had a 1.3. It wasn't because I wasn't smart. I just didn't fit into the culture. Like the culture didn't necessarily reflect me. And when I look at the numbers and statistics, I think it's in between 10 to 12% of Black males that enter Eastern Michigan actually graduate. So in that sense, I know I'm kind of like an anomaly, but this is kind of like where my work falls in. What's the PhD in educational studies, so that I can really be in place to support, especially Black students, but really it comes down to, all students of color. And then more recently, I've been working with returning citizens on this internship. And so that has also broadened my perspective, right? So now it's not just Black, it's not just Hispanic or Chinese. Now I'm working with white guys who have been in jail, who are struggling just to get enrolled. And then when they get to Eastern, then they jump through the same hoops that I jumped through also. And so when I look at what this work is now turning into, it's bigger than what I thought it was going to be. I thought I'm just going to work with Black kids and that's it. And then, the numbers got bigger, and then this internship popped up. And so the thing that I focus on is really, I thought it was just belonging. And then what I picked up from like Dr. Goldie Muhammad reading some of her texts is it's really the pursuit of intellect and the pursuit of intelligence that I was struggling with, right? And the reason that most, the guys I talk to that are returning citizens, what they were struggling with was identity, right? How I'm smart, right? But where do I put my smarts? I played football in high school, and I had a scholarship to go play football at Middle Tennessee or something like that, Adrian College. Either one, my dad was like, yeah, you're not going to do that. So when people take away what you've only been shown, right? And for most Black people, it's only to be shown to be some kind of entertainer. And that falls in the lines of being a singer, sport player, rapper, whatever it is, it's in the sense of entertaining.
Yeah.
And not always necessarily like this intellectual person. You know, if you think back to our TV, when I was growing up, like the only person you saw who was like a star and semi-smart was Urkel, right? From Family Matters. He used to fuck everything up. So, right. So who wanted to be that guy? The guy that everybody's like, get the hell out of my house. You fucking everything up. Or did you want to be like Will Smith, who was cool, played basketball, had the girls, and you knew he was in real life a rapper. And so you try to pursue those things. And when that doesn't pan out, you have black kids especially trying to replicate a lot of stuff they see in videos or in movies. And, they find out they're not that person. They find out too soon that they're not that person, end up either honestly dead and there's no conversation after that, or in jail.
Yeah.
Or just go ahead.
No, it's okay. Please, I don't ever want to interrupt you. I thought you were pausing for a second.
No, go ahead. You're good.
But all right, so I finally found my gem though. So I incubate and I help manage a company that deals with returning citizens, and we've got an app and a crypto that we've designed around it that incentivizes staying compliant with your orders so that you don't get a technical violation and go back for some silly reason, because about 26% of people go back for just a technical violation. They missed a meeting. They didn't do something their PO said or whatever. And I told the woman who's the CEO, Katie Kelly, you got to watch my show today. I don't know why, but I have a feeling. And now you just showed me why. It's serendipity, I think. Nice. And a couple people from the crowd are saying they just love your work with kids and with returning citizens. So I'll get that out of the way. So shout out to Omar.
Thank you, Omar.
But, I want to start with what obstacles what are some things that would surprise like a white person about what going to a white university, because there's just historically black universities too that maybe are they more comfortable? Are they easier to pursue the intellect and the identity versus, let's say, a U of M or an Eastern Michigan? And what are some of the things that you could teach us about what people are running into?
Yeah. So if I would paint a picture of what it was like, because I attempted to go through orientation, freshman orientation. And I remember a couple of my friends who were actually going to Wayne State came up to school with me because they didn't want to go to theirs. They wanted to be like away for a while, right? And so as we went to some of the events that were set up, none of it reflected where Black students usually were from, right? So even growing up in Southfield, the biggest majority of people really in our school were Black. And then I would honestly say it was probably Chaldean and then white.
Yeah.
And so now when you get to college, and it's completely the flip side, where not only are most of your educators white, but then a majority of the campus, and then there's this small Black portion, right? And people kind of identify it for you. You don't even get a chance to choose, I'm gonna go over here because this looks, interesting. It's no, the Black people, y'all, we always eat over here. This is where the Black people hang out after school, or right before class. This is where the Black people hang out. And so it's not anybody outside telling you that, it's other Black people telling you this is your safe space, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of get used to just navigating that portion of the campus and not the whole campus. And so when I think back at orientation, the music wasn't reflective, or it would be old music, right? That Black people probably don't regularly listen to, right? We're always, whatever's new is what we're listening to, right? So that would be, and I remember going to a party, these girls are playing Boys to Men or some shit like that, Motown Philly. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Nobody listened to that shit in 10 years, right? But it was still that first crossover for them. Oh, here's some Black music, we're playing it. But for us, it's that shit's old and it's not authentic because this is not reflective of what we're listening to right now. So that, who we saw, the cheerleaders that come out, cheerleaders are all white, but the football team is all black, right? So, where do you fall or not? Well, majority black. And so if I would think to tell a white person that it is so much of, I think it goes into planning. It goes into planning. When you look at your demographic, you can see who's coming into your school, and do you at least have the same percentage of representatives on that deciding board, right? Which means, are we eating food that may be reflective of this culture? Is it inclusive of that culture? I know now the big thing is vegan, right? Vegan, like to be vegan or vegetarian is covered, right? But there are certain things that, Black people may or may not listen to, may not be a part of, may not be interested in. There's a certain level of like, I don't know what the best way to say it, like excitement that some Black folk just don't get into, or it's not the excitement that they're used to. And so when I went through some of the events, it was difficult. So I found myself back at my dorm room. Didn't necessarily give up on the process. So I ended up joining our first year mentor program, and then also became a part of the freshman orientation program, right? So when someone was leading students around, there was at least a Black person now leading some of those students around, or at least saying, hey, don't go back to your dorm room. I did that shit. And then when I was looking for the financial aid office, I couldn't find it. Or when I was looking for a tutor, I couldn't find one. So like, don't go back to your dorm. This shit matters. And so it was at least that, that piece of inclusiveness, which it was open to everybody, but yet again, who was doing the recruiting, right? So if there's only, 10 white people out there doing the recruiting, how many Black people are going to bring in? But because I had gotten so involved and ingrained in the campus, it was kind of like a no-brainer for them to ask me to do it. Like I went to the leadership stuff I worked for the university. I was the performing arts coordinator for the university. So I did a lot there, which kind of set that path for me. But if not, it's hard. It's hard as hell. I mean, it took me 2 years to feel comfortable in a place that I was paying for. Like, could you imagine that shit?
Yeah.
You living in your house for 2 years and you don't feel like you want to come out of your front door. You don't want to go to whatever is happening in your community. You don't feel like you're a part of your community, but you're paying for that shit. And, just that alone, it separates you naturally from being a part of. And so I think back to my friends that were there. It was ironically 20 something of us ended up in these upperclassmen dorms. There's one guy that I know that graduated besides me, and we still talk. Like we were like, it was like buddies in combat, like we made it through this shit, and we gotta still be friends because we saw guys leave every single semester, like just not return after their first year, second year, and then by the time we were juniors, I literally only saw him. So just me and him. He just texted me the other day. He's still in education, also. Yeah, I mean, it's if that helps answer the question.
It does help answer the question quite a bit. And I'm going to have another question about the returning citizens in a bit. But was that first kind of not even welcoming, but that first orientation, did that set a tone? Like these guys are trying to bleach me out or try to make me something I'm not. And I don't know if bleach me out is still an okay term. I might not have been or shouldn't have said that, but I think it is, right? I mean,
I've never used it. I think I understand what you're saying. Like, are they just trying to add white into to my cultural piece or whoever?
Like the euphemism professional. You got to talk like us. You got to dress like us. You got to fix your hair. So it's not. Right.
So it was never that. It was never, don't come as you are. It was, there was no one in position of leadership that we related to. And even when you looked at who was the next person that, like, it's kind of like you have a tour guide, so to say. Like I just didn't relate to him. This was I was again at a school that was majority Black. And so if I get somewhere and everybody's majority white, this doesn't necessarily feel like I'm included. And nobody said don't come. The encouragement absolutely was come here, go to this, but it wasn't cool. I guess you'd say this is again an 18-year-old perspective. That wasn't cool. It wasn't somebody I related to, somebody I didn't necessarily kind of mirror what I thought my experience was. And so I just wasn't a part of it. I just wasn't a part of it from the beginning.
So we have we at the Fledge here, we use chaos theory to drive a lot of the power and the creativity of what we do. And a lot of the fractals and a lot of the energy that feeds our chaos theory is from the diversity, from, all the different people and ways that we think about things, the way that, the stuff that we eat, the food that we grow. We've been working a lot with Black-led organizations in a garden project. So these are all starter plants for different Black-led organizations in the background. And, I saw that even in the seeds that we brought, right? It's, some guys wanted to grow, collard greens, but not everybody, we didn't grow those last year, right? And so, even the seeds that we got had to be more inclusive.
Right.
And so this is, it's subtly, we say these words, it's today's the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. Mm-hmm. And, everybody on May 26th of last year wrote a diversity policy and shit like that. Right. And it's so inauthentic and insincere that these little subtleties that I think you're talking about, to the white fragility or the, being anti-racist, I think are super important messages to some people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this a big part of what you're doing in your PhD program, is to figure out, because it's about onboarding students, right? Is what you were saying?
So if you're asking, like, is that a majority of my work with the PhD? Yeah. So it is trying to figure out, how do we navigate that? How do we navigate intellect, and how do we navigate identity? Just as well. So, and I know you were asking earlier, do HBCUs provide that? So the answer is yes. So HBCUs essentially focus on building a stronger professional when you leave that place. So it's putting a network behind you. It's putting, the right professors behind you. It's how you present yourself, in the classroom and any other work that you're doing. The job fairs that happen. There's just a direct attention, given to Black students there, where I can't say that happens at a predominantly white institution. I've also come to terms with not saying that, and some folks say it derogatorily, but it is what it is. If it's predominantly white, what do you think is supposed to happen, right? Like anything else that's predominant, it doesn't become predominant because it's, the lighter version of itself. It's predominant because it is the majority, and majority rules. So in that sense, it's still learning how to carve out a piece of it, because there aren't any in Michigan anymore. There was one, I want to say Lewis College of Business was an HBCU in Detroit. Next closest one is, I want to say it is Central State in Ohio. And I want to say Wilberforce just closed down in Ohio also. I could be wrong, but I believe Wilberforce just shut down. So again, if you're a Midwest student or you're in the state of Michigan, there are no HBCs for you to attend. And then we have such strong and prominent universities here, it almost seems as, why can't I be a part of it? You've got U of M, Michigan State, Wayne State, and then still highly acclaimed Eastern, Western, Central. Like, those are still big name schools across the country. I mean, they send people everywhere. So why wouldn't you be able to just stay home and still find some form of, identity or intellect in your place of higher ed? So it will always be an ongoing struggle unless the principles of that school are turned over or revisited. Very similar to what we're talking about with the Return to Citizens program. like a lot of that stuff never existed, right? How do we get
Yeah.
somebody who's had a record enrolled now into college? A lot of that language doesn't exist. And so, but the ability to deny somebody still exists. And so that's what we end up doing a lot of now is how do we re-navigate this system to fit people who have, now the ability to pursue something different. They're not trying to go back to prison, and they're trying to better themselves. But yet here's a brand new set of no's that we have to navigate around. So yeah, I mean, this work is going to be ongoing. The program I'm a part of is a pilot, but it is directly connected to Eastern Michigan. So it's growing. No matter what is growing, we have probably about 20 some people in the pipeline, and that's just going to continue to grow, as we grow.
You reminded me to say something that I wanted to say. Eastern Michigan's a great university. It's not, I mean, I know sometimes it gets overshadowed because U of M and MSU are so big, but Eastern Michigan is a great university. So is Western, Central, and all of that. And I do think we're lucky from that perspective in Michigan that we have not just two major Big Ten ones, but so many of the other. I mean, Wayne State with their partnership with the health systems is also amazing. Henry Ford and all of that. So kudos on Eastern. It should never be diminished because it's a great school.
No, not at all.
Returning citizens, real quick. So, you're talking about going to college and, getting identity, figuring out who they are. I want to tell you a quick story. We had a guy that was referred to us about a month ago, 44 years in prison. The judge noticed at one of his hearings that they sentenced him wrong and they let him out, not on parole. So 44 years in prison, and they drop him off at the homeless shelter. At least if you're on parole, you've got services, you've got a parole agent, you've got people that you can go to. But if you're not on parole, it's just see you later, good luck. And it took him 3 days they gave him a phone somewhere along the line. Took him 3 days to figure out how to answer the phone. And, just those little obstacles. But you're talking about something, man, college seems way, way far away. But we got another guy that was in for 26 that helped us start our program. And he took tons of classes while he was in there. And as soon as he got out, he started going to Lansing Community College. And so your work, I do have a feel for it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more how that came to you. How did you get there?
Yeah. So as a part of the PhD part, you're supposed to pick up an internship that has some kind of relation to the work that you're doing. And the director of the program, I was explaining that to her. Well, she was like, "Hey, you really got to look at this program." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know how that's going to match the work that I've been doing." Like I was sharing earlier, is I had been strictly focusing on Black students, but then kept the perspective open enough to say, brown students would benefit as well. But as I listened to what it is they were doing, so I sat through a couple meetings and I was able to make the connection myself and say, this is actually the same thing. So I got paired with them because I was looking for an internship. The internship is over, actually. So like it ended in April, but I'm like, no, this is too important. So I'm essentially volunteering to still fulfill my part of it, right? Which is working one-on-one with some of the applicants and using their experience to create this framework that we can now use in this college space. So I didn't know the work was going to be that important. So this work is now, is being shared with legislators in the area so that they can start making, the right changes. And also the disciplinary boards at the university. So not only Eastern, but looking to extend it to Washtenaw County Community College and also Jackson. And so here I am just thinking, I'm just like kind of taking notes and working on presentations. And now the work has grown to be where we're actually changing policy in the university and how people will actually be qualified to enter the university, and why not? So it got bigger than what I thought, Jerry. I didn't know. I thought I was just like fulfilling a class requirement, and now I'm actually ingrained in the work and don't want to let it go. And I'll share this with you personally, in the crowd. In the middle of this semester, my stepson ended up being incarcerated. He got incarcerated out of state, and his release has not yet even been finalized yet, right? And so for me also, so then the work got personal, right?
Right.
Because now here's this another young man, same age as me, he's 18, got caught into some stuff out of state where he shouldn't have been involved, and now I'm looking at like I can't even get my foot out of the door now because I need to know everything that's happening in relation to education, programs, trade, certifications, anything that he can possibly still now fulfill. It became personal work also. So it's, it been a little bit more now. Now it's not just, I met these guys, they're trying to do their thing. No, now it's my stepson. And so now I also have to figure out how he's going to navigate this space. Because for me, my hurdle was, just fitting into a university. Well, his hurdle is fitting into jail, which is a totally different shit. I've never had to experience it longer than a day. But other than that, he's still in there for God knows how long, until they figure out, what the final charges will be. So
he's still in the pretrial, like still in the arraignment and stuff.
Yeah, he's still in that case. No, they've actually been sentenced, but they're still kind of in the middle of some appeals that they're going through. So again, it's not yet permanent. Yeah. But I mean, it ended up being personal. It ended up being personal work, Jerry. So now it's not, let me find out for these guys. Let me find out for my family now, because I need to know, what kind of things can someone still pursue in this place, and and what's available when you get out.
Yeah.
Because if not, I think we all know, recidivism in this country is the absolute highest in the world, and so you can't it's hard to put it down on an application. Applying for college is the same thing. That's like once you put down that you have a felony, you might as well just throw out the application yourself. Yeah. It's just kind of like going through the mold. Like, why even do it?
But they tell us you're paying a debt to society, and you're supposed to be even when you're done, right?
That is what you're told. Yeah.
Yeah. But like many things that we're told, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and equal justice and all of that, it's really not true.
We had a gentleman who was in his mid 60s, and kind of explained what his experience was. So he ended up getting denied. So we were like having to go back through and like trying to reapply and all that stuff for him. But he honestly said his experience going through the college application system was like being back in jail again. It got so personal. Like they're asking him everything he did. What was his charges? How long was he in for? And he was like, I'm rehashing this stuff in front of a board of people who aren't even, my disciplinary board at the prison. Like he said, even it wasn't even that extensive. But it's so much of, I don't know if they're trying to just, cover their own tracks, but doing it so much so that it's really invasive. And I've had to like take our application and take some stuff off of there. Like this should not be number 3 on this list. Like, how long were you in prison? Can you get this guy's name first? Yeah. Can we find out what they're trying to pursue, even in the place of education? Because they might not even want to go there. But here they are explaining 100 things to you, and what they meant to actually do was sign up for a trade program. Well, but now you have all my information. You're telling me no about my charges when you could just be telling me no to the program. Like, oh no, we only service these programs. You probably fit better in like a Focus Hope or a Northwestern Tech. And that's a different conversation. Like, lead me with a solution, or lead our people with a solution versus leading them with another level of denial. They don't need that. Yeah. But how can we be resourceful enough to say, oh yeah, you don't want this system, but let me put you in connection with this 2 or 3 people that we've been working with They know you're coming. They know you have a record. It's not going to hinder you from getting a decent certification and also a job.
Yeah.
Versus,
We learned a long time ago, don't ask people what they did. If they want to talk about it or whatever, but we never ask them, and they always tell us how long they were in. We don't ask that question either. Just because you can figure it out, 50 years, you probably did something that, you were convicted of something, whether that was just or not. Because we've had, Ingham County just let out their their last juvenile lifer. But we've dealt with 3 juvenile lifers that we're happy to see out, who are wonderful people. And then we deal with a company in North Dakota called the F5 Project that talks about ugly grace, and it talks about what we as a community can do to help people that are coming back into society. And, they paid their debt, and we need to remember that. That is the American promise. And we haven't done that. You look at the graph, you watch something like 13th and look at how many people have been imprisoned, how many black and brown people have been imprisoned for just an extension of the Jim Crow laws, or the war on drugs, which is really the war on us. I love the work that you're doing. I knew I was going to love this show and getting to know you. So do you feel like you're changing the way that Eastern Michigan or even more universities are going to look at this?
Yeah. So it right now is directly Eastern Michigan University. We were trying to focus in, in the early phase, we're like, well, let's think about all the colleges, but all of our connections and our support systems are still through Eastern Michigan. So it makes sense because those calls are easier to make, right?
Yeah.
Our director's been there 20 years. I've been removed, but I still kind of know the buildings and know who's there. So it's a little bit easier to navigate just the phone system. If somebody's getting out who hasn't had any no regular technology usage, no regular phone usage, it's good to have folks who can just make those calls.
Yeah.
So it has made sense to focus on Eastern. My research also has had me look at other programs outside of Eastern, because we're not the first to do it, but also so we're not kind of wasting our energy trying to recreate every single sentence, right? Yeah. Kind of, since most folks say not reinventing the wheel. So we are still looking at what other people are doing and what's working well. So MIT has a similar program, and there's a few schools out in California that also are working to bring citizens back into the place of education. So I'm happy to do it where I'm at, because this is where my strength is at, and because it doesn't get a chance to relate to my work. So for me, I'm just kind of serving like a dual purpose, so to say, being at Eastern. But it makes sense. It makes sense that whatever we're doing, potentially, if at least it's done properly in our area, that we can at least maybe replicate it starting out at Wayne State or Michigan State, even U of M, because again, with this thought process that I have with intellect and identity, and I'll keep saying it as much as possible from Dr. Goldie, Muhammad, is you just because you're in jail don't mean you're stupid. You just were probably doing something in this pursuit, as I was saying, as you're trying to figure out who you are, that you end up doing something criminal,
right?
Or get caught somewhere where you shouldn't have been, knowing that you have been raised in a different environment, but you are trying to pick up a different persona so people feel like you're tough. Oh, I'm this bad boy or bad girl, or all the shit that comes with that. So they should have it in all of these schools, because not every person who went to jail is just whatever. And even if they were, they still have went to jail. So that's it. If I'm roaming free, you might have, and I broke out of jail, or I'm in pursuit, or I'm on the run, maybe. But if I've served my time, then I also deserve the same ability to navigate, all places in the United States.
Yeah. So I've got one more question in this subject, but it's also 40 minutes in. and I knew we were gonna run
cool.
long for some reason. So can I ask you one more thing? And it's about the what's that called? The registry, the I forget what they call it, the CSR or something. Okay, it's the sex registry, the sexual offender register.
Oh yeah, okay.
So if you're a 19-year-old guy in a gang, let's say, and you hold another gang member, at gunpoint or something, you get charged with kidnapping. And if that other gang member is less than 18 years old, then you automatically get registered on that registry. Really? With no questions asked, no sexual contact, nothing like that. But you have to register there. The U.S. Supreme Court has told Michigan 3 times to stop using our registry because it's illegal. And that's one of the reasons that it's illegal. It's not fair to people like that. So if I'm a young kid and this other guy, I was just in school with them, I kidnap him. That's not nice, but it's not the same. Right. But I still have to be on this registry, so I can't go work with kids. I can't go. I can't live in a radius of a school and all of these things. Have you seen any? Do you guys check that registry?
Yeah,
not you. The school, the Eastern.
Sure. Good question. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone is, if they are checking it, but I can guarantee you they're preventing people from getting on it. I don't know if you've seen recently in the Eastern news, you have a bunch of fraternities who should all be on the sex offenders list. So it must exist, but I know there's a hell of a lot of work to keep people off of it. Definitely depending on the status of who they are. And I think that always matters. It's that these are majority white fraternities, that have frat houses on campus who, it's been so many accusations that you have to believe some of it to be true. So I can't say that they aren't using the list, but I can definitely tell you they're preventing people from being on it, because that would mean the fraternities will have to shut down. That would mean, probably everybody in that fraternity would be under some kind of investigation. And so I don't know. I don't know if we use it. A lot of the candidates that we have, I don't know if that has even come up as an issue just yet.
Okay.
Good question.
But, I
can't answer 100%.
That whole time you were talking about returning citizens, I'm thinking that same thing. Not that it's biased for the white fraternity and not for other people, but I'm thinking, I probably did the same thing as this guy. He just, I told the cop he's not going to look under my seat or whatever and find that weed or whatever. But I was doing the same thing, but my privilege got me out of it. And the bias against them, the racism against them, got them even more entrenched in it. I often think I probably should be in jail for more crimes than some of my friends that were black and brown, for sure. So thank you for all of that. And I do want to say one thing. Katie wants to talk to you. So we want to try to do another connection outside of the show and talk about returning citizens and what you're working on. So, and Katie runs Power and Passion is the company that we're working on.
Oh, please. So, let's connect.
So we'll reach out to you. What's something you do every damn day to push your mission forward? I'm going to start talking all fast now because I'm scared I'm going to take up too much of your time.
No, every damn day. So this is probably what you heard. So I've gotten back to performing. This is me actually doing some poetry. This is actually one of my theme shirts, so you'll probably see this one again. But I've just tried to get back down to the basics. I get in front of a black wall, put on a black T-shirt, kind of following the artistic mind of Kerry James Marshall, who just kind of does everything in black, not brown, but just truly black. And I try to make my voice relevant again. My social mind, I think, was a lot stronger and a lot more aggressive in my 20s. As I'm kind of moving out of my 30s now, I just think it's important that I continue to use my voice. Um, it may not be in the largest platform, may not be to millions of people, but I just think, setting a regular schedule for myself, being early in the week, so Monday, Tuesday, and then always Friday, I make sure that my voice is heard, and it's not always, my largest political piece, but it's sometimes it's just celebration. Kind of one of the things I was sharing with you of like,
Yeah.
just can you see yourself in this poem? And that to me matters just as much. Being, having been an educator, having pushed, curriculum to be switched, bringing Black books in on my own, spending my own money on books that were, by Black authors. It is what I do, as an educator, is what I do every day, is find some kind of way to either speak or also present, something that is from the Black perspective, because they're not always included. And if we can't ask somebody else to do it for us, G, I could ask you to do a million things on this show, but it'll never be what I want 100%. So I have to do it myself. Yeah. Right. And so that's what I think I do every day, is being an educator is like taking on that shit every day. Yeah. Looking at things, is this the right program for our students? Is it inclusive of them? Are the solutions based around their neighborhoods? Does the math connect to something that they're going to use? Is it relevant? And are the texts and books and images that they're seeing, are they reflective of them? And if that's not enough, then I do my poetry, just enough to connect. And to see my graduates, kind of give me a shout out and share my stuff, students that I've graduated. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like Mr. Allen's actually doing some cool shit. Like I feel like I've done something. If a 19, 20-year-old shares some shit you did, you're doing something good. I feel like I'm doing the right thing.
I was watching one of your poems today, and I was reading the comments, and they were like, what platforms are you on? You need to blow this up across TikTok and all these others. What platforms are you on?
Yeah, so I am just using Facebook and Instagram right now. I tried to do TikTok. I'm still going to do it. I was told to do it, and this is kind of like essentially my year of yes. So I'm going to set it up. Right. So whatever opportunities and thoughts and, come my way, I'm going to figure them out. I'm going to take them and see where it takes me. My YouTube channel is up right now. It just has like some of my shares from when I was a teacher abroad. So some of the stuff I did when I was teaching in China, and then some of the stuff that I did here, I just put some small videos together. So I'll add it to that channel, and I'll just keep it to that channel also.
So I'm going to start sharing your stuff in the Fledge group and our Fledgling page and stuff like that, because I dig it a lot. And I forget, we should have shout out Nelson Mandela. He's the most famous returning citizen of them all. He became president of South Africa.
Yeah, this is a good shirt today, then. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I have so many. I want to keep talking. I'm going to keep going. We daisy chain these shows together. Yesterday on the show, I had an inventor. His name's Charles. He invented this thing that keeps your glasses from fogging up when you're wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. And his question to you is, it's almost like maybe not identity, but like you walk into that orientation at Eastern and it just doesn't feel right? The music's just a little bit off. The food's off. It doesn't feel authentic. And probably from the organizer's perspective, they're thinking, yeah, I'm really inclusive. I'm really doing a good job. And they probably have good intentions at some level.
Sure.
But their perception and your perception is just different. How do you make important connections how are you dealing with that? How do you work through that to make that significant connection with somebody that doesn't see the world that you see?
Yeah. Well, the unique part about that is you won't change them. You won't change anybody's perspective. But I think how you represent yourself and just making sure that you are represented in spaces, where you want to be. I think it's just important that you give, your honesty, So my daughter's school just actually was doing this recently. They had a a parent committee, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, where you may feel like it's not authentic, and because everybody's doing like DEI now, right? All of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so I still found it necessary to jump in and volunteer, looking for parent volunteers. They didn't do it because they just had kind of a tragic issue at the school. The principal just passed away.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they did postpone it, but I was looking forward to that for the same reason, right? So I look at the demographics of our school, my daughter's school, all white leadership, all the educators are white. The only two people of color who are on the educational staff are paraprofessionals, and then the other black lady I saw on the staff was the lunch lady.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Farmington, if you're familiar with the area, is black. There's a lot of Indian people, and I mean from India, not considered classified Native American, but actually Indian from actually the country of India. And you have black, Hispanic. I mean, honestly, everything that you can think of, every culture you can think of, is probably represented in this area. But the programs aren't necessarily inclusive of all of those students. Even my place of education, like everybody is a Muslim, but we did celebrate, the end of Ramadan with our students, and that was just a basic shout out, and so
we know what Eid is. You can say Eid.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So just that basic, basic acknowledgement, right? But again, if we don't say anything, then, like as you just mentioned, people think everything is okay. Right. And so can I change your perspective about who you hire? Do we fire everybody at the school? No, that's not right. That's not right in their perspective, because that teacher didn't do anything wrong. But how can we help them be more inclusive? And that is just, again, not shying away from those opportunities to step up and say something, but joining in. And so I was looking forward to it, not to start shit, but just to say, like, what's happening during Black History Month? Well, what can we do for that? Do we also know that Asian American History Month just passed either? Would you do anything for that? No. Okay, so how do we make everybody get acknowledged in this place of education without firing the whole staff? Because that's not necessarily the right thing to do either. So to kind of answer your question, and a question from the to guy with the glass saver, it's just a matter of using your voice and speaking up. Is nothing you can do to change a person. I trust me, I've been trying to change my kid for years. Nothing you can do to change a person, but you can still share your perspective. And if you don't share your perspective, you don't give them an opportunity to grow, and you're holding all of that shit in yourself, and that didn't change anything either, right? What good does it do for me to hold in my honest feelings about this situation, or where how my kid is seen and what kind of things she needs to see, if I don't share? So I think it's important, as corny as some of that shit is, the DEI stuff, you just got to go. And I've honestly looked at some positions in it as well myself, because I know how important it is. You send, just as important as it would have been when I was at Eastern, if there was someone there navigating diversity, equity, inclusion in the year 2000, there probably would have been, how many more Black students that actually stayed on the campus.
Yeah.
But they went home because the shit didn't look like them. And so, to answer his question is that, it's our responsibility to step up and say something. Everybody has that now, whether or not you accept it or receive it or whatever, at least you heard it. Yeah. And at that point, there's nothing more we can do after that.
To be clear, DEI is super, I think it's important. I just think we should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah, I get it. I know what you're saying. It's like,
but I love the way you just framed it too, because it would have had an impact on you, right? It is impactful still, because there's still other organizations and institutions that aren't doing anything. Correct. They're just trying to do the same old way. Tomorrow on the show, I've got Anna. Anna has started a design company. She's got her kids involved. What question would you like me to pass to Anna?
Yeah. So for Anna, I want to ask you, how do you pursue intellect in society? So what places are you, looking for intellect? Where are you finding it? Where are you finding the places that kind of match up and mirror to who you are? So where are you finding intellect in your society?
And, I flipped this question on you. So where are you finding intellect in your society? And I think your PhD program might be an obvious answer, but I don't know.
Yeah, so that is a good space. I know it's not common for most folks to be in that. I mean, again, it's only in a class, it's generally like 8 or 9 of us, right? But it is the ability to have these higher level conversations that don't necessarily happen, in a barbershop or at a restaurant or, just over the phone when you're trying to catch up with someone. And so it is learning how to advocate using education as a tool to set up and implement some of these stronger programs. So you're right, it does. It actually comes from there. I actually look forward to it. My wife, who does exceptionally well as a professional, she's just like, yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, actually, right now. I'm like, you run a nonprofit organization, you manage millions of dollars every year. You don't know what I'm saying? And she's like, no. So it does matter. It matters in that sense of having that community, because it makes, the research seem relevant, and, the work that I do makes it feel relevant. Yeah. And it's not complaining. Sometimes with just educators in the building, just teachers, it can turn into like a complaining match and not necessarily a think tank for new ideas. Yeah.
Well, our education system is pretty broken. Lansing School District is struggling, and I don't want to try to punch at them or anything like that, because they've got constraints, school of choice and all these things really screwed things up. But our education system is super struggling. So to me, you're a hero because you're a teacher. But I also love the work you're doing because it's going to be very impactful in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've had me, so I'm in the middle of Octavius S. Butler's Parable of the Talents right now.
Okay.
And thinking about skill, I've been thinking about skill acquisition, because we're really about resilience here and growing your own food and building your own future, basically. And, I got to a part of the book recently where they found a bunch of books that had been stored away and talking about, reading the textbooks and all of that. Is that another place where people, what are some other answers for pursuing your intellect?
Yeah. So for me, this is something I can always hide when I'm doing it. People generally think I'm listening to music when I have my ear pods in.
Yeah.
But I'm like always in some audio book. I'm always in some audio. My most recent listen was the Autobiography of Assata Shakur.
Oh yeah.
I finished that yesterday. I could run down like tons of them. The whiteness of wealth. Just read that one. So I just find texts that I think again will kind of mirror and match my experience. Yeah, that was it. The Whiteness of Wealth by Dorothy Brown. Politics of Trauma, something I've been listening to recently. Some James Baldwin work.
We need your playlist for your books, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little geeky thing, man. I don't want people to always know I'm listening to books. I want them to think, but I'm definitely usually.
So you move a little bit while you're listening to the book.
Yeah. I'm listening to a book. I'm just kind of shaking my head at you. Yeah, The Caste System by Isabel Wilkerson. That's pretty good. She wrote the Warmth of Other Suns also. This is pretty good when you talk about paralleling how society looks caste, the book Caste, because it obviously takes the theoretical caste that we look at when we are thinking about India and how those caste systems are set up, but she uses that same framework and places it in the United States, and really just talks about the hierarchy that exists in the United States as well. May not be as easily identified by name as it is in other countries, but there is still also these layers of, supremacy, white supremacy, capitalism that exist in this country that are very similar to a caste system. So that book was fantastic. It's a fantastic book.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna cut out a little bit of the last question and just what gives you hope? What gives you hope for our educational system, for inclusion, for acceptance or welcoming for people, so we don't have so many people that are, I don't know, not white, I guess, because I'm trying to include the returning citizens, but they're white too.
Yeah.
What gives you hope that that's going to improve, that acceptance into?
Yeah, so I'm actually seeing it now, and I'm happy to see it. Is the emergence of Black women in leadership positions. I think seeing that more recently, and again, my wife is definitely a benefactor of holding a high level position. Her peer group, and I think that has mattered a lot because classified, Black women have been so far down on a totem pole of this country. And so it's good to now see them elevate to these higher positions outside of the home, and really taking on some of these higher level thinking positions that that I think like helps equate them into society. So that is what brings me hope. And also because in our household, we've got a house full of young ladies, right? And so I'm happy to know that there's going to be a place for them because so many other women are elevating, and women do a lot better job, especially Black women do a lot better job of pulling each other up. And so I'm just happy to see that. That in itself brings me hope to know that our women will for sure be okay, and they help parallel what a lot of men were trying to do. Black women help us. They generally go over and beyond. A lot, and I don't think that's in every race. So women just kind of make shit better.
Yeah.
Guys really struggle to think through all the details and then make it, guys are already like, yeah, put this big shit over here. Women are like, yeah, but what about all this other stuff and how's it going to run? I'm like, okay, I'll take a step back and let you do your thing. So glad to see that.
Do you mind if I add just a little bit to that and my thoughts in that, like in 2020, Black women were called upon a lot to help manage the stress, to help be there for their families. But then it's not always, they get called on it during the tough times, but during the rewarding times, they don't get called on anymore. Yeah. Right. And I see so many people, including myself, turning to Black women and having to almost pull back and say, wait a second, you got enough on your plate. You don't need me asking you for something more. So shout out to Black women because they make a lot happen. I understand exactly what you're having. A big part of our crowd are Black women. So thank you for that too. So I'm going to start to wrap it up. So every damn day at 2 p.m. I'll be on tomorrow with Anna. She's part of the One and All program, which is an incubator or an accelerator program for young entrepreneurs who live below the Alice threshold. So it's a unique program that we're in. So shout out to Anna too. And what would you like to take us out with, Gerrard?
What do I want to take you all out with? Continue to pursue your identity. I know we have a lot of distractions around us, reflections of things that may or may not be us, but continue to pursue your identity, at all costs.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, sir. All right, everyone, we will see you later. Stay with me for a second, Gerrard, while I end the broadcast.